What's up, world? I'm a determined black man, John Jay, and as usual, I'm determined to reach at least one someone listening to the sounds of my voice, if not each and every one of you all. On today, we're going to take a deeper look into the situation that's going on over at Twitter with Elon Musk dropping these bombshells, y'all. Elon Musk dropping bombshells on the three-letter agencies. Yes, he did. He is dropping bombshells. The Twitter files have been being uploaded. And now there's more light being shed on exactly why, possibly, allegedly, maybe, perhaps, the reason why Elon Musk shed so much weight over at Twitter. He went to clearing house. Maybe this is why without even asking why. I'm willing to believe that this is why without asking why. Because one thing I do know, that Elon Musk is very calculative, and he doesn't just make ill-advised decisions. The man has sent rockets to Mars. So it's not rocket science, but I know you don't want to just take it from me. So I'm gonna let y'all check out senior writer and podcaster Elon McLeod as he did an interview with Rising News, and he gives you a way more in-depth understanding as to what's going on with the Tesla boss, now executive over at Twitter, and why he uploading these files, and what's going on with the FBI, why they were so heavily involved. Maybe we'll get a better understanding as to what Elon was really doing and why he shed so much weight over there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he'll shed some light now with these files as to why he had to shed so much weight over there, and he let go, they say, somewhat of maybe 50% of his employees. So let's check out Elon McLeod and see what he has to say about it.
Twitter has been openly collaborating with the FBI to distinguish which accounts to suppress and which accounts to delete.
Senior staff writer at Mint Press News and podcast producer Elon McLeod joins us to explain in depth. Thanks so much for coming on to discuss.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So tell us more about your findings. I suppose if Twitter were to try to explain this, they would say, right, they need security experts, people who know something about how to prevent hackers and keep people's passwords private and that kind of thing. What do you see going on here?
Yeah, sure. I think that's totally justified. Twitter is a company that's now big enough to really necessitate having a serious look at security and cyber crimes and influence campaigns. And I get it. There's kind of a limited pool of people who know about this. Some are in the military, some are in intelligence, but really the scale of how many people Twitter and other social media companies are bringing in from the national security state should really worry people, especially as what I found was in the investigation was that they're really being recruited into highly politically sensitive fields like content moderation, security, trust, and product development. They're not being recruited to become sales managers or customer service reps. So ultimately, what we're seeing here with the recruitment of people from the FBI and other three-letter agencies is that the national security state is increasingly having some sort of influence over the algorithms which control all of our lives and decide what we see and what we don't see every day.
Well, what's the direction of that influence? Because I think, it sounds nefarious, but how nefarious it actually is really depends on what they're doing and what criteria they're using to delete accounts or to ban accounts or even shadow ban accounts, as some people believe they've been the victim of.
Yeah, that's exactly right. From the FBI agent's perspective or the other three-letter agencies, I spoke to one former FBI colleague who said that people were really looking for that payday at the end of their career because they're not paid particularly well in these agencies, but they're looking to score a corporate job. So for a lot of them, it's just about making sure that their kids can go to college. However, when we look at what they're actually doing there, people in the FBI and the CIA, they tend to have a mentality, and the mentality is very much aligned with what the US government wants. And right now, that's really a very aggressive, confrontational stance against certain countries like Iran, like China, like Russia. And we see that reflected in these intelligence reports that Twitter keeps putting out. They keep finding influence operations and bot networks in countries like Russia, China, or Iran, but they never seem to find them in the United States or its allied countries. And frankly, that's because they're not even looking there. So we're in a situation situation where it's difficult to see what's going on, but Twitter openly talks about collaborating closely with the FBI, that the agency actually sends them reports, and that they act upon those reports. So there was a story a couple of years ago that during the 2020 election, the FBI handed them a dossier, and Twitter deleted a network of Iranian accounts that they said were trying to influence the 2020 election. But it perhaps gets more ridiculous when we look at what happened last year, when Twitter announced that it deleted 100 accounts it suspected from being from Russia for the violation of, and I quote, undermining faith in NATO. Now, apparently that's enough to even get yourself banned or shadow banned from Twitter right now. That is a very controversial stance, because NATO is not an organization that should be beyond scrutiny.
Yeah, it makes me think of the fact that, after years of hearing about Bernie Bros, there was finally one article that was written last year about the K-Hive Army, which does seem to act much less as an organic constituency group. Obviously, Bernie had a lot of support. Kamala Harris didn't make it to the first primary because she had insufficient support and fundraising. And yet, as a user, it does feel like the same accounts that had rallied behind Hillary Clinton in 2016 were being deployed in this new format as the hashtag K-Hive in 2020. You could definitely feel it there. There was finally some reporting on that. And of course, back in 2016, there was also some reporting on Hillary's Brockbot army that was substantiated. It is curious to think that those kinds of bot accounts might not be investigated, while certain others, because of their political valences, whether it's NATO criticism or what have you, are the ones being shut down. Do you have anything more on the kind of censorship that is happening or not happening on U.S. accounts, and how we should think about shadow banning? How does one even know that they've been shadow banned?
Well, in terms of shadow banning, it seems to be relatively common on certain social media platforms. But I think the main problem is that there are these sorts of there are algorithms ultimately that decide what is credible news and what is partial or not fact-based. And ultimately, you guys will know this as being part of the media. If the YouTube algorithm decides that you're a great source and a factual source of information, it will promote you. But if it decides for whatever reason that you're being too critical of the US or anything like that, it can decide to put you on the naughty list, essentially. And that can ruin media outlets' entire business models. And so ultimately, these algorithms are super powerful things that not only decide what media outlets live and die, what accounts live and die, what gets promoted, what gets suppressed, but actually has a huge influence over the public sphere in total. And so ultimately, I think it is really important that we look at who is actually making the decisions in Silicon Valley that really affect everybody in the world. A lot of people seem to think it's some pointy-headed bureaucrats sitting in an office in San Francisco. But what my research has found is that increasingly these people are people who've been plucked directly from the FBI and other national security state organizations. And that means that we really need to scrutinize this a little bit more carefully.
Well, on a related note, some of the really bad moderation calls that we've criticized in the past, like the Hunter Biden laptop decision, the decision to suppress the New York Post reporting on it from Facebook, from Twitter. These are examples where actors in the government, right? We saw that list of however many intelligence officials it was saying, yes, this is Russian disinformation. And then the social media company doesn't have to listen to that. It's a private company. It has First Amendment protection. It can do whatever it wants. But increasingly, we see social media companies doing what the government suggests that they do, like with that story or with COVID, so-called COVID misinformation, the lab leak, etc. But it's probably even more likely that a social media company goes along with the administration's recommendation or preference if the people they have on staff deciding these matters are ex-employees of the government, ex-intelligence officials. Of course, they're going to say, well, yes, the intelligence officials are right. We should listen to them. And isn't that concerning?
Most definitely. I think what we're seeing now in the past few years is an increasing amalgamation between big tech and big government, and ultimately it's now becoming a little bit difficult to see where one begins and where the other ends. Another example of this was when the Trump administration assassinated General Soleimani, the Iranian general and statesman. Because the Trump administration had put the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps on its list of terrorist groups, it meant that Facebook and Instagram, which are very, very popular in Iran, were forced by law to suppress all content that was positive against Soleimani or condemning the assassination, which was a position that something between 80 and 100% of Iranians took. So ultimately, we had this crazy situation where Iranians talking in Farsi to other Iranians in Iran were not allowed to even share a majority opinion online because of something that was decided in Washington. And those are the sorts of things we really have to start thinking about. Companies like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram are not multinational corporations that that just exist in the ether. They are very much based in the US and subject to US law. And ultimately what we're seeing is a sort of increasing penetration of their upper ranks, particularly in content moderation, by the national security state. And that's something that at least should be talked about right now.
Right, so let's talk about it. First of all, big shout out to Rising News for doing this interview with their special guest, senior writer and podcast producer, Mr. Alan McLeod. You done a wonderful job, sir. And you broke it down, made it very basic, plain, clarified a few points that I even had questions of. And so now we have a better view of what the reasoning behind Elon Musk's bombshell that he has dropped on us with the Twitter files, and what all of this is exposing with social media in a whole, and these 3-letter agencies that he's mentioning. Yeah, he's breaking it down and explaining to us how these 3-letter agencies have been colluding with big tech. So y'all jump in the comment section. Let me know how y'all feel about this thing. First of all, let me know, do y'all agree with the government having such a hand and control in our, day-to-day lives? Yeah, we want to be, we need to be safe and we need to be protected, but we don't want to be targeted. We don't want to feel like we're just being watched as free citizens. I'm already treated as a second-class citizen as a black man. The last thing I want to do is feel like I gotta censor what I say. This almost bringing us back to the days in Mississippi of Emmett Till. Went in the grocery store and allegedly just whistled at a white lady. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to be under those pressures. So this is why it can very well affect our community or any community. This is about the human race. And the fact that government, as he just stated, the government basically wants to control the narrative all across the world, when our government should only be concerned with our country and our borders, right? Yeah, of course, we have to maintain certain relationships with other countries for trade purposes and just, the alliances. But at the same time, we should treat everybody fairly. And if we are watching one, we need to watch all. And if we targeting one, we need to target all. Or not. And this is a problem. By no circumstance, under no circumstances, no situation should social media be manipulated by our government. So what the newly Twitter chief executive has exposed is the hypocrisy in our U.S. government, in its relationships with big companies and big tech and social media and the things that influence the public's perception. That's powerful, because you have the choice in who you want to be promoted and who you want to be demoted. Not only does that change people's livelihoods, because you decide on whether they eat or not, but it also changes our ability to rationalize things for ourselves and to have a decision-making process. You're trying to decide for us. See, even if they give you 1,000 choices or 1,000,000 choices, if those 1,000,000 of those 1,000 choices have been handpicked by a left or a right side, then those are the influences that you're going to be reluctant to. Yeah. So that's why it is of such importance that all this stuff come out, because it ain't just started happening. It ain't just happening at Twitter. It's just that Elon Musk has paid the price. He's paid the cost to be the boss. He's paid the cost to go in and shake some things up and have y'all like, damn, Elon went over there and fired half the people. His first week or month in. Well, Elon Musk is a quite calculative individual. As I said, he sent rockets and probes to Mars. So this ain't rocket science. So this won't be as big of a deal to him as we're making it. He's just trying to make it fair. He understands the importance of freedom of speech. Don't you realize, for those of you out in my community, in the black community, you know what's going on right now in Atlanta, Georgia, with those RICO acts, with Young Thug and Gunna and them. Yeah. Their freedoms of speech have been called into question because they're using some of their lyrics to prosecute them. The same way they did with Boosie, the same way they did, I want to say, with Gucci, the same way they're doing with other rappers. The list goes on. You know, shadow ban is real. You see, they shut Alex Jones down, slapped him, as they just stated, $1 billion fine. That sets him up. He can't speak no more. He don't want to say nothing. Okay? And that's a white man. So you can already imagine, as blacks who basically have to tip around certain cultures and certain ethnic groups or religious groups, we have to tip around and walk around on eggshells because you don't want to ruffle any feathers. But nobody takes that type of respect when it comes to the black man. Nobody takes that position when it comes to black folks. And so that's why we need to know what is going on right before our eyes, because a lot of stuff flies over our head and goes right under our nose because we don't know. And it's okay, because before I did my research, before I gained the understanding that I have, I was ignorant. So it's no shame in being ignorant. The shame comes in when you want to relish or you want to continue to live, embellish in your ignorance, wallow in your stupidity. When you have knowledge and you have information presented to you, chew it up and digest that. Let it sink in. Because it's probably going to be something that you're going to use or need further down the line that can help protect you from an even worse situation, have you prepared for the worst. Even if you can't prevent it from happening, if you prepared for what's to come, then it puts you in a better situation when it comes. Our people need to know it was many things that happened to us, even with that transatlantic slave trade. A lot of people want to refer back to we were sold by our own people. Well, I'm led to believe that had they known exactly what was going on, then they would have never, ever sold off their own people. Hell no, those people were manipulated just as every other group or mass of people that have been subjected to those masses of people, colonizers. They were manipulated. They were lied to. They were bamboozled. They were hoodwinked. They tricked them. They told them, yeah, they're going to go over here and work for us, but they're going to be treated as indentured servants like every other form of slavery prior to the transatlantic slave trade. They didn't tell them how brutal it would be. They didn't tell them how we would be packed in the bottom of ships like sardines, and how disease-riddled those slave ships would become, and how many people would die just in transportation, being transported to the different islands and making their final destination here in the Americas on Turtle Island. They didn't tell them. They didn't explain all of that to them. No, it would have never happened like that. So that's why I appreciate Elon Musk, because it takes big bosses like Elon Musk to be able to, you know what I'm saying, expose things, spend a little bread to get inside. So the things that they have paid to hide, you know, you are paying to provide us with clarification and understanding as to how much control and manipulation is going on behind the scenes in big tech and with our government. Censorship and shadow banning is hugely a problem. It dictates who is promoted and who is demoted. That's a problem. That determines who gets fed and who doesn't. You know what I'm saying? If the government has the right to suppress certain information, then that determines how you think and decide. And that, my friend, is just not constitutional. That is very unconstitutional. I have a right to speak and voice my opinion, just as long as I am not threatening or making a claim or stating a plan of action against my government. I should be able to freely voice my opinion about how I feel, just like I should be able to go out and freely vote for what candidate I feel like would best serve my needs. But when you are suppressing the information about candidates, then I'm only forced to think how you want me to think. I'm only forced to side with what you are presenting me because I don't know enough about the other side. And people tend to go along with what they know or what they've heard, whether it be consciously or subconsciously. So yes, this is very much wrong. I'll never agree with it. The government should never have his hand in social media or with any of these larger corporations that have such power of influence. That's the thing. When you start censoring certain people and not allowing them to say what they want to say, but you allow others, then you control the narrative. That's not a democracy. That's not fair. You know, let's keep it clean and let's keep it fair. If big government has the right to suppress what content is shared through big tech, that's a form of communism and not a republic or a democracy. So let's keep it clean, y'all. I appreciate Elon Musk. And y'all hit the like button if you're liking this information. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. And if you haven't hit that notification bell already, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified each and every time I'll drop new hot content to this channel. I am a determined black man, John Jay, and as I always say, y'all stay up, stay humble, stay good people. I'm out. One.